Hello. Okay, let's continue on. This is part 2 of getting Nodal.js set up. Again, disclaimer, I'm doing this on the fly, so you probably want to fast forward, or not fast forward, increase the speed. So it seems like a normal,
I'm doing this on the fly.
normal screencast or a normal screencast. So what I've done since last time is installed Postgres for Windows. That's all I've done. Just downloaded the installer, ran it. The only thing I had to do was set up a password for the default user, and that was it. Then it installed. So when you install the Postgres, there is let me share my screen here. Okay, so when you install Postgres in Windows, it gives you a GUI interface called pgadmin, and you can administer your database through this. But Nodal gives you some commands and some command line or console command lines and ways to manipulate the database. So let's look at those for a second. So, well, let's look at, so the files of the Nodal app. So if you look at db, I'm in my project folder. The main root, there's db, it's the config folder, and db.json. This is where all the settings are for your database connection. So in the development part of the config, you see the adapter is Postgres, the host is localhost, the port's 5432, and this was set up. That's the default port for Postgres. The Postgres username is Postgres by default, and the password this is what I put into it. Then you have a database name, and I'm just going to leave it this test name because that's good enough for what we're doing. And so the first thing you want to do is, well, the whole thing set up with these web framework code generation tools like Nodal or Laravel is that they create everything for you. So all you do is type some commands in the console, and it automatically generates the database and the code you need to represent one entity within your business domain space. So if whatever app you're building, you think of the types of things that are in it. So I'm going to make a really generic example of this. So if I bring up a command line or console to the node example I'm in, and I'm going to say Nodal G model my thing. So this could be like anything in your system, a car, a person, and then you give it attributes, and these are directly relevant to, or directly related to the columns in the table that this would represent. So your model is my thing, the table is going to be my thing. Actually, Nodal might change it to my things, I'm not sure yet. And then you say, okay, well, what does my thing have? It has some type of attribute that's an integer, and then some other thing that is a string. And it's going to now, it's not going to create anything in the database yet. It's going to create what's termed a migration. So if you look over here in your migration folders under the top level DB migrations, and then you see this file, this is basically just a record of the steps of you creating different parts of your database. So it has a timestamp because it orders it in the order that you create it, so that you can create things in order and then you can roll things back in order. This is just the typical behavior of, or the usage of migrations. So we created these files, but nothing in the database has actually occurred yet. So let's make something occur. Let's go back to the command line, and we're going to say nodal db create. And now this is going to actually create the database. So in our config file, we had node example development, and now it should be created. So if you go back to the Postgres interface, the PG admin, this is the Windows interface. I'm on a Windows machine, and you go on databases and you refresh it. So hopefully we'll see our node example development database is there. And it took a few seconds, but now it's started up, and Nodal just knows where it is because it has the config information to talk to it on localhost through the port. So then let's see, just following the instructions from the Nodal website, you do a Nodal prepare, Nodal db prepare, and that says, and that just sets up the database for some administrative work that Nodal wants to do. And then to actually create the table that you want, you're going to do nodal db migrate. That's the command that's actually going to read that file, the migration file, and create a table based on what's in that file. So you didn't have to manually go into PG admin and do all that yourself. Nodal did it for you. So if we go back to the database and we, let's see, refresh it, and let's see, schemas, tables. Yeah, okay, so in the Postgres, the PG admin thing, you go to your database, schemas, public, tables, and under there is the table recreated. You can see the naming convention has been altered. So my thing with lower capital M and T, and then it changed that to just lowercase underscore my things. And then you look at columns, and it has the columns that we specified as integer and string. So now we have a database set up, which is great. We can store things and retrieve things from a database. If you look over here in models under your app folder and go to my things, you can see that this is a model that represents the thing that you created, and this is what's going to tie your code whatever, if you're going to create a template which is going to show a web page, or you're going to make an API that just returns JSON. This is the thing that's going to interact. You're going to interact with the database through. This is the middleman through the database. So I'm not sure what, I'm not sure exactly what it's doing, but you can use it to create entries or create data to put in your table, or retrieve data from the table. And we'll look at that in a second. So in when you're using these web frameworks, pretty much it's always the MVC model. It's always a model view controller type setup. So of course in Nodal, in the app folder, there's a controllers folder, and there is your controllers, which we looked at, but you see that there is no controller for your thing, my thing. So there's no way, there's nothing that is linking up the route. There's nothing that's linking up a route to the code that will get the data. So that's what we need to do next. And of course, like everything else, you do it through the command line. So in order to create the controller, which links up the route to your model, you are going to do a Nodal G controller. And for some reason, you put a version on it. I'm not sure what that's about yet. But you do for, and then you say what model you want to make a controller for. Okay, so it looks like they have already, since the, okay, so side note, all these commands I'm using are coming from the instruction video. There were no actual instructions to tell me to do this. I had to watch his tutorials on YouTube. And so since that video was released, they've changed it. So this is a perfect example of trying to use a beta product, something that was just released and is very unstable. You know, it's fun to play with and try it out, but in reality, things will be constantly changing, so it's really unreliable. It's not something you'd want to use in production. So it says for colon model name was removed, just use for space. Okay, so did that. Now it works. Let's see, what did it do? So it should have created a controller. Well, let's look at the router first. First, the router, it created a route. I had that namespace. I probably wouldn't have used the namespace if I was doing this for real, but that's just something you can do. And then it has the name of the model and then the ID, which is just part of the functionality of a route. Getting something by the ID is one of the most common things to do. And then there's a controller that is designated as what handles when you go to this route. This is the code that handles when this URL is observed. So then let's go to the controller. It has all the normal things. Index. Index actually just gets everything, or actually it uses a query. So you put a query string into the URL, which we'll look at later, to find, search through your models however you want. Show looks like it just shows one by ID, creates a new one, update, destroy, blah, 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 blah. So this is just a typical setup. Now let's see if we can just simply get one thing showing. So if we go to, let's see, this route, and I should have my server still running, right, from last time. And so I refresh the page. It looks like because we just set up the database, some things are happening. Or maybe I stopped. Did I stop the server? No. Server's still going. Let me cancel it and start over. Doing the Nodal S for server. Okay, let's see if it goes again. Okay, there. So let's paste in the, what is it? V1 my thing, underscore my thing. Okay. So you can see that nothing is showing up because we don't have anything. So let me just make sure that was it. Oh, it's my things. So they use plural. My things. Okay, so you see the difference. Everything returned from the endpoint of Nodal is always the same. It's an object with this metadata. and then your actual data in the data. So if I put something else, you can see there's a message not found, but it does find my things. There's just nothing in my thing. So let me see real quick if I can finagle this by manually putting in information. So I right-click on my things table in the pgadmin, and data down here, you can just, let's see, yeah, you can just type in anything and hit save. Let's see, looks like it. What runs anything? What is this? Okay, let's see, did that actually put anything in there? No, it didn't. Data output. Let's see, thing attribute, another thing. Okay, so this is where we put our number. This is where we put the thing. I don't know why it's so weird. It keeps disappearing. Kind of crappy. I don't see how to put anything in this. Okay, so I'll probably stop there, and next we'll work with actually. So we have the endpoint working, and next we'll actually put things into the database and retrieve things from the database. So stay tuned for part 3.